Lena had been going to the same gym for months, keeping to herself, earbuds in, eyes down. She wasn't there for selfies or socializing, just to train. But to some, her quiet presence made her an easy target. One afternoon, a group of loud, gym bros, decided to make her their entertainment. The ringleader, a muscular guy named Brad, swaggered over as she set her water bottle beside the bench. "Lightweight day again," he smirked. Before she could answer, he grabbed her bottle, tossed it across the floor, and laughed as his friends egged him on. Lena calmly walked over, picked it up, and returned without a word. Brad sneered, "Careful, princess, those dumbbells might be heavier than you." She just smiled faintly and motioned toward the bench press. Brad, eager to show off, accepted her silent challenge. "All right, I'll even spot you, sweetheart," he said, lying back on the bench. But Lena didn't sit on the side to spot. She stepped behind him and racked up the bar with smooth precision. "Warm up weight first," she said flatly, stacking plates until the bar groaned with 200 pounds. His smirk faltered. "Wait," but before he could finish, Lena gripped the bar, unracked it with flawless form, and lowered it to hover an inch above his chest. Brad's eyes went wide as the weight pressed down, and his friends froze, unsure if they should laugh or intervene. With steady control, she let him feel the crushing pressure for just a second longer, then racked it with a clang. She leaned in, her voice calm and low, "Don't ever touch my stuff again." Brad sat up, rubbing his chest, his bravado completely deflated. Word spread fast, and for the rest of the week, no one in that gym dared to even look at Lena the wrong way. Brad leaned back against the bench, still wearing that smug grin he seemed to have been born with. The overhead lights reflected off the sheen of sweat on his arms as he flexed subtly, making sure his crew was watching. Lena didn't bother matching his expression. She simply walked over to the rack and began sliding plates onto the bar, her movements methodical, calm. She wasn't loud, she wasn't dramatic, she just worked with the quiet efficiency of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Brad chuckled under his breath. "Oh, come on, don't tell me you're trying to intimidate me with that." Lena didn't answer. Instead, she locked each plate in place with a sharp click of the collar, then took a step back to look at the loaded bar. 200 pounds. Not absurdly heavy for a seasoned lifter, but for the average gym goer, especially someone who underestimated her, it was enough to humble. Brad's friends, 3 guys in various stages of trying to look busy, hovered near the cable machine, watching like it was primetime TV. One of them snickered, "Yo, Brad, you sure you wanna do that weight? I saw you struggle with 185 last week." "Shut up," Brad shot back, waving them off. "This is just for fun." He lay back on the bench, still smirking, though there was a slight edge in his voice now. Lena walked around to stand directly behind the bench, her hands loose at her sides. She looked down at him, her gaze steady. "You ready?" she asked. "Always," he replied, gripping the bar. But Lena didn't hand it to him. She gripped it herself, her hands wrapped around the knurled steel, her stance rooted. She lifted the bar off the rack in one clean, controlled motion, the plates clinking faintly, then held it suspended over his chest. Brad's eyes flicked up to the bar, then to her. "Wait, what are you?" Before he could finish, Lena slowly lowered the bar until it hovered just above his sternum. The weight settled into his chest like an invisible mountain, not touching him, but close enough for him to feel every ounce of its potential. His cocky grin vanished. "Hey, careful," he stammered, suddenly very aware of the difference between looking strong and being strong. She held it there effortlessly, her breathing calm and even. The veins in her forearms stood out slightly, but there was no tremor, no strain. Just perfect control. From the other side of the gym, the clank of dumbbells and the hum of treadmills faded into the background. Even the guys who had been mid-representative at the squat rack were now pretending to rest, their eyes locked on the scene. "You like to throw things that don't belong to you," Lena said evenly, her voice low but cutting through the ambient gym noise like a blade. "Water bottles. Maybe other people's boundaries too." Brad swallowed, trying to laugh it off. It was just a joke. The bar sank a fraction lower. "Does it feel like a joke?" His friends exchanged wide-eyed looks. One of them mouthed, "Bro, she's insane," but none of them stepped forward. Brad's arms twitched like he was thinking about grabbing the bar, but the thought died instantly. He wasn't moving 200 pounds off his chest unless she let him. The seconds dragged. He could feel the heat of the metal just inches away, the subtle vibration of her muscles holding it steady. "All right, All right, he said quickly, his voice climbing an octave. I get it, okay. I won't touch your stuff again. Lena didn't answer immediately. She just held his gaze, letting the silence stretch until it was unbearable. Then, in one smooth motion, she pressed the bar back up and racked it with a solid clang. Brad exhaled like he'd been underwater. He sat up, rubbing his chest though the bar had never touched him, trying to mask the tremor in his hands. His friends erupted into a mix of laughter and disbelief. Dude, she just made you look like. Shut up, Brad snapped, grabbing his towel and standing up fast, as if walking away could erase what had just happened. But it was too late. Word was already spreading. A guy on the stationary bike whispered to the woman next to him. Someone in the corner subtly typed on their phone. In the age of gym gossip, this moment was going to outlive all of them. Lena calmly unscrewed her water bottle, took a sip, and set it down exactly where it had been before Brad had tossed it. She didn't look at him, didn't smirk, didn't need to. The room already knew who'd won. She went right back to her workout, moving to the squat rack with the same quiet precision. The tension in the air shifted. People stepped aside for her, not out of fear exactly, but out of a newfound respect. As Brad slunk toward the locker room, one of his friends jogged to catch up. Man, what was that? You just let her. I didn't let her, Brad muttered, his voice tight. She's freakishly strong. His friend laughed. Yeah, and she's not afraid to prove it. You gonna apologize or just avoid her forever? Brad didn't answer. Meanwhile, Lena loaded the squat bar without glancing at them once. She didn't need to see Brad's face to know he wouldn't cross her again. By the time she finished her session, the gym's social hierarchy had shifted. People who had barely noticed her before now watched her with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. Some nodded politely when she passed. A few even asked, awkwardly, if she needed a spot. She declined each offer with the same calm smile. Later, in the women's locker room, two regulars she'd seen around approached her. Hey, that was epic, one of them said, grinning. Brad's been strutting around here for months. You just shut him down in 30 seconds. Lena shrugged, toweling off. I don't like wasting energy on people like that. But sometimes, she zipped her gym bag. You have to make a point. They laughed, and one whispered, you made the point. When she walked out into the cool night air, she felt no pride, no gloating, just relief that she'd stood her ground. She hadn't set out to embarrass him, but she also wasn't in the habit of letting disrespect slide. And now, she knew she wouldn't have to worry about it happening again. From then on, whenever Brad's crew entered the gym and saw her already lifting, their laughter quieted, their path curved slightly to give her space. And every once in a while, when Brad caught her eye from across the room, she would give the faintest nod, just enough to remind him that she hadn't forgotten. It wasn't revenge, it was balance restored, and Lena, as always, preferred to lift in peace.